boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul Dewalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Barada, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Lindsay the Boss Poss. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. And best of all, with the live stream, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to participate, ask questions, get in our faces, challenge us. We welcome all of you to get involved. It's a safe space. You can lurk if you want. We know hundreds of you sit and lurk and don't say anything. That's okay too. But we encourage you to get involved. We love it. It makes it so much more fun. How is everyone doing this week? Lindsay?
Doing so well. Have had a busy week as usual, but has been a great week. I had a great time last week I went up to New York and met some of the team, and Jeff and I hung out for a little bit, and feels good to be back.
Do you feel better now that you don't have Jeff cutting you off right next to you?
No, it was actually nice having him right next to me because I could put a hand in his face when he started cutting me off. But what I didn't enjoy was him bumper carring my chair out of the frame every 3 seconds.
I have no comment.
It was very special energy last week. I did, as much as the setup was a huge pain in the ass, it was a lot of fun, and I do miss it. But we are back to our normal guys. Arsani says late again. Well, just a couple minutes this week, Arsani. Robert says hello, Robert. Great to have you here. SEO says yo. Hello, SEO. Welcome. Guys, before we jump into some news, we have a ton of topics. We also are going to do a very extra special, I think, lightning round this week. So have that teed up. And but I will say, podcast this week, definitely go check it out. There's also a new Office Hours with the Professor episode that has dropped. So it drops every Wednesday, guys. So it's already dropped for this week. But the podcast dropping tomorrow is with Vijay Kaduri. Incredibly interesting guest. He's got a company, sizzle.gg, and they have like an AI software platform that ingests video and spits out all the highlights. I convinced him that he has to make it work for this show so that we can automatically get all of Jeff's juicing in nice in nice digestible highlights. So that should be fun. I highly recommend checking out that episode when it drops tomorrow. And let us know what you think of Office Hours with the Professor. William's been doing a great job with that, and would love as much feedback as possible. All the love. Go send William some love if you're enjoying that show. All right, guys, let's jump in to some topics. And I want to start with, I will say, someone who is near and dear to my heart from a gaming standpoint. Like, this person, it was very formative in terms of my gaming youth. And it's none other than Sid Meier in the news. And Sid Meier, famously the person who created Civilization, one of the most successful strategy games or franchises of all time. This headline caught my attention because it said Sid Meier warns the game industry about monetization. And so they talk about how basically that in the old days you bought a strategy game. This was all about gameplay. And what Sid Meier says now, he says, this was speaking to the BBC on the 30th anniversary of Civilization's release. He says, the real challenge and the real opportunity is keeping our focus on gameplay. He says that is what is unique, special, and appealing about gaming as a form of entertainment. When we forget that and decide it's monetization or other things that are not gameplay focused, when we start to forget about making great games and start thinking about games as a vehicle or an opportunity for something else, that's when we stray a little bit further from the path. Now, this is not in the interview or the article. I think he's alluding to some of the blockchain-based games, play-to-earn games, obviously maybe even free-to-play type of, pay, not pay-to-win, but pay-to-advance kind of mechanics that you get with a lot of mobile gaming. And microtransactions, etc. So he's very much against sort of thinking about monetization in the context of games, and his view is it has to be games and fun first. Who here is in the camp of this is old man Sid Meier yelling at cloud, or this is like real insight and, sort of he needs to preach even louder because not enough people in the industry are hearing this?
It's old man yelling at cloud.
Why, Jeff? Why?
Because no, I'm kidding. I think I think we all probably agree that, particularly with some of the new play to earn stuff and some of the, we'll call it, sleazy practices and monetization schemes that are out there in that industry, I think there is issues. Although a lot of those don't even qualify to be games. I mean, at this point, they're basically just digital Ponzi schemes that wear gaming as sort of like a Trojan horse cloak, to scam people. But yeah, the reason why I think it's a little bit of old man yelling at cloud is because this article probably could have been written any point over the last 5 to 15 years, and it probably someone would have been like, oh, he's totally right. Because you could have said it with free to play microtransactions. You could have said it with mobile. Hell, you could have probably said it with DLC back, when that started becoming popular 10, 15 years ago, where it's like, what? I don't get the whole game. You're going to want to make me pay to get an expansion? Like, that content should be in the game when it releases. So I think there's always been a backlash to any sort of additional monetization. While in this case, I think he's right. It's a little bit of old man yelling at cloud, to some extent.
I mean, in his defense, he didn't say making money on games is bad, right? And Civilization has done DLCs and expansion packs, and they've used many of those mechanisms that you've alluded to. I think he's really saying maybe the games aren't that fun anymore. Jimmy, Lindsay, I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's funny. I literally just watched an episode of South Park where it's an old season where they're trying to save films from their creators. Basically saying George Lucas and Spielberg doing all these remasters are ruining the original IP of that product, and there gets a point where IP becomes more the property of fans and audiences than the original creators. And when I try and apply that here, I think of the role that fans and audiences and the next generation of gamers have in influencing the trajectory of games and their application, their potential utility, etc. Because I think most of us, and maybe I'm aging all of us here, but most of us would probably agree, right? Like, hey, this is supposed to be fun. You're not supposed to do this to make money. It doesn't become. It was an outlet, right? And a stress release and something fun to do. It was a pastime. And so to make it a business, to make it a metaverse where you can actually live and work, that's not gaming to us as the OG gamers. But the more I think about it, the more I think, well, I mean, I have similar feelings with social media and with all kinds of other anecdotes, and there gets a point where we kind of age out, and what's the use case? What are the younger generations doing? What are the masses doing with this property, with this potential, with this technology, with this IP? And that's really what it becomes, you know. I know it's controversial, and I'm still kind of developing my thoughts on this, my feelings on this, but it was just funny because I literally just watched that episode like over lunch briefly, and I thought, well, how much of this actually is just us being the old men yelling at clouds trying to save our industry versus a huge wave, a huge youthful generation that wants to apply it in a different way. And I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but that's my observation.
Lindsay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this just reminds me of what you say basically every week, Paul, which is make games fun again. Why are there no fun games? Partially, I think that there's a lot of nostalgia at play. So maybe things that would be fun to you aren't fun to people who are now just getting into games or something like that. But fundamentally, I do think that you're right and that games should be made with fun in mind, at least as a large majority of the factor behind them. So I can see Sid's point. Feels a little bit like old man yelling at cloud, but it also feels like, hey, remember when it was fun to be in this industry and fun to create and fun to innovate? Like, can we do that again? And I can understand that.
Yeah, the age thing to me is just, again, it's such a crutch argument. I think, like, I totally disagree. It's not that we're just getting old and it's like I don't know what a fun game is anymore because I'm over 30, so I don't know what's fun anymore. I just think that's just it's a weak argument, right? The reality is, you go into any Discord filled with teenagers, no one's having fun. Like the amount of boredom in that generation is shockingly high, right? Like no one's like loving the games that are coming out. No one's just eating up. And like the games that get streamed, I was saying this on the podcast, something like Elden Ring is the most repetitive nonsense of a game I think I've maybe ever seen. Like we've reached peak repetitive nonsense as an industry of just like boss fight after boss fight, like roll evade roll after, like nothing interesting about the gameplay, the story, anything at all. I think we got to stop with the cop-outs of, oh, we're just getting old, so we don't know what we're talking about, or Sid Meier's just an old man yelling at cloud. Like, Sid Meier has made more great games than some entire studios, right? Like him single-handedly. I don't think we can just ignore that. And I think he makes a great point that the conversation seems to start with, how do we make sure this game is successful financially, rather than how do we make sure this game is fun to play? And I suspect literally at no studio on the planet is anyone starting with, how do we make this game fun to play? That's just the sad reality of it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't have a solution. As games become increasingly bigger and bigger business, maybe that's just inevitable. I don't know. Hardware Barbecue says, damn, BBC really wants you to buy that RG laptop. Yes, sorry for the ads. Greg says, amen, Sid. Greg, I agree with you. Hardware Barbecue says, this needs way louder than it should be. It feels more like gatekeeping, to the point that it feels devs rather have the game disappear into obscurity over not having microtransactions. That I actually think is true. Who knows, maybe World of Tanks and World of Warships would be much bigger if they didn't gatekeep elements that you need to play in a balanced way. I feel some elements in Rust is the same. You can still win, but some purchasable items gives a certain edge. Like, I don't know if you guys agree with that assessment. I'm curious, obviously, but like, who here thinks that it doesn't really matter what the monetization method is? Like, I'm fine with microtransactions. I'm fine with play to whatever, fill in the blank, as long as the game is fun, right? If the game's fun, you can get away with just about anything, I would think.
But I think there are elements of those things that make the game not fun, right? If something's play to win, or hey, you can't progress unless you buy something, like that is inherently going to make the game not fun. Do you disagree with that?
I mean, I still think the game could be fun. I agree it's harder to make a fun game. It's definitely harder, but I don't think it's impossible, right? Like there are trying to think of examples of games where they're fun, but they may have the most horrible, like Fortnite has pretty aggressive, microtransactions, cosmetics, all this kind of stuff. It doesn't affect the gameplay. The game's still fun, but I would argue they're pretty aggressive in terms of monetization. Tom says Halo falls into that repetitive category. I mean, Tom, find me one game today that doesn't. Like literally, name me one game that doesn't. That I think is the unfortunate part. That I said this on the podcast this week. You guys will hear me say it. I think that's the biggest threat to the industry. It's maybe the only threat, literally.
Just the games not being fun.
Like in terms of existential threat, like do we get to be like, is it an industry worth $3 trillion at some point, right? My view is that's inevitable. Maybe the only thing that can stop that is if people forget that making fun games is the whole point of all this. All right, guys. I just like that because I think Sid Meier doesn't get enough credit and has made some of the greatest games of all time. Let's talk about a business story that was maybe shocking. We spent a lot of time talking about the Microsoft Activision deal. This one, Jeff brought this to my attention. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Actually, let me just read these before I get to this. Tom says, I keep going back to Borderlands, and because it is fun, you are on the right track. Yeah, but again, we're like picking really old games now. This is not a new game. Adam says, fun games usually have new, unique mechanisms. Spider-Man fun, Call of Duty, same thing, new day. Agreed. Matt says, for me, a great example of that is Injustice 2 Mobile. It's a fun game that has some play-to-win mechanics, but they aren't necessary to progress through the game. That's important to give people the option, whether they want to grind for free or pay to advance quickly. That's why the game has been around and still successful for so long. Yeah, it's doable. It's harder to make it fun, but it's doable. Matt says Civ 2 is an all-time great PC game. Like all the Civs, especially the first three, are some of the greatest PC games ever made. Sid Meier actually made my favorite game of all time, which gets no love at all, which is Master of Orion. But if anyone ever gets a chance to play Master of Orion, probably the greatest PC game ever made, other than like Quake, because I have a thing for FPS games. All right, guys, let's talk about this Microsoft Activision story. Barry Diller, the headline here. Barry Diller denies insider trading on Microsoft Activision deal amid DOJ and SEC investigations. So Barry Diller here strongly denied allegations on Wednesday that he, his stepson, and longtime pal and fellow mogul David Geffen engaged in insider trading in their purchases of Activision Blizzard call options. The trades are under investigation by the Justice Department. Supposedly, they profited, I think it's further in the article, they profited about $60 million collectively from these trades.
Is that a picture? Is that a picture of Barry Diller and Martha Stewart?
Yeah,
that's
which is a funny.
So rude.
That's hilarious.
I just want to put this next to another story, which is more Activision Blizzard stockholders sue over Microsoft sale. So this is shareholders bringing a suit against Activision Blizzard and its board, alleging Securities Exchange Act violations in its proposed plan for its sale to Microsoft. So they're saying the plan or the sale is unfair for a number of reasons, and they're saying senior management is getting significant and immediate benefits. So like golden parachutes, things like that are not fair, and therefore there's a group of shareholders that are suing. I put these two stories together. I want to talk about sort of legal trouble around the deal, but I also want to tease, because I think it's something to look out for, and it's something I'm really excited about. We have a new sponsor and partner coming. It's a law firm, Segev Law. You probably remember Marius, who was on the podcast from Segev. But we are going to do special episodes with them, and they've been really gracious to give us the time, where we unpack with them like legal stories in the gaming and esports world. So it's going to be dedicated episodes to unpacking like legal problems, legal issues, lawsuits, some of the fun sort of legal points happening around the business of gaming and esports. But we're going to have a real lawyer to talk about it.
Whoa, Jimmy, that's fighting word. He's got the honorable in his thing.
So that's just to tease. That's coming soon in a few weeks. You guys will hopefully love that content because it's going to be a lot of fun. So what do you guys think of the trouble around Activision Blizzard here? Let's start with the insider trading scandal. Are we going to see Barry Diller, David Geffen end up like Martha Stewart? Jimmy?
There's not a lot of info that's been released other than that it's been alleged and that the profit was massive. The only the only part about that story I don't like is that they got caught because I think it's hilarious. No, in reality, I mean, you don't want two stories about this. We knew that there was going to be more, right? When the acquisition happened, we knew that there was going to be some kind of turmoil, someone making a stink of things. The shareholder one is more understandable. It's more expected. Can't wait to see what Segev shares on our special episode in that regard. This insider trading one obviously has criminal implications, right? So that's kind of the juicier story to follow. And 60 million is not a small amount, right? That's quite large.
Martha Stewart went to jail. I think her total profit on that insider trade was like 30,000 or 40,000 or something.
It was
I remember
small.
correctly.
Yeah, I remember it was small. So it's the allegation is no joke. The jail time is certainly no joke. And I don't know if the juice was worth the squeeze.
Well, that's a good lead in. I mean, I'll start with the shareholder loss. I mean, the shareholder lawsuit to me is completely garbage, right? Like,
standard
to me,
actually.
Yeah, you see this almost every acquisition. So they'll sue and then they hope to get some sort of settlement or basically just some arbitration where they get some small crumbs. And the reason, look, I get it. You could be upset that Bobby's getting paid, but he also was the CEO and he had a contract, and this is what was in the contract. So that's like literally just how things work. And the reason why it's bogus is because if you're a shareholder of Activision, you're also getting an immediate payment. You're getting $95 in cash when realistically, let's be honest, if it weren't for this acquisition, the stock would be $40, right? So like, I don't know how would you rather them not do the deal, and then you come and you delayed all your Blizzard games, your esports leagues are blowing up, and you're not doing a Call of Duty next year. Like, you'd rather that than $95 in cash. Like, have at it, fill your boots, right? Like, to me, that is just idiotic. But I'm sure there's some strategy behind it, and they'll probably get something out of it. On the, I guess, more serious one, it's a massively fascinating story because these are real hitters, right? Like Barry Diller and David Geffen are multi-billionaires, titans of the entertainment industry, and clearly close with Bobby as well. So it's one of those things where you almost, because of the size and scope of this, you almost have to be like, there's no way that they were insider trading, because no one is stupid enough to be that high profile and make $60 million on an insider trade when you're already a billionaire. Like, you have to know you're going to get caught. So something tells me that this is clean, but it's very suspicious. And obviously we don't want to speculate here because we only know what's in the article. It smells horrible, right? And you can even tie in, right? Warren Buffett bought shares right before the deal too. So it definitely stinks a little bit, but these guys, it just feels like none of these guys are stupid enough to just make
it. Wasn't a big enough payday, right? Like 60 million sounds like a lot, but if you're worth billions, it's kind of like, do you care? I mean, you do care, but not enough to go to prison, risk going to jail, right? Like, it's not life-changing money for any of them. It does feel odd. Lindsay, you had thoughts on this?
Also, some good chat comments when Lizzie's done.
That's what I was going to say. Is I actually think that Matthew Lewis had my thought. Just put it into words.
I don't know. I don't think anything unethical would happen in Activision Blizzard. There's some sarcasm here, I think. Tom says, "Nice. The legal stories can be great." Yeah, Tom, it's gonna be a lot of fun to unpack those with Segev, live essentially. Greg says, maybe they listened to the Business of Esports. You were touting Activision as an acquisition opportunity for weeks before it happened. I mean, Greg, everyone should be listening because this is the only way to see the future. Matt says, has Activision Blizzard had a single positive headline since the Microsoft acquisition? That's a good question. Have they?
I think you can even go back to about at least a year before the Microsoft acquisition too.
Have they had any love at
I
all
would
from?
I would argue most people were happy about taking the year off on the releases because it meant better
Yeah,
games, but that's still like shareholders are like, great, so now we're putting out less product, right? So probably not.
yeah. I don't know. The insider trading thing is interesting for me because hold on. Greg says yes, Bobby leaving. um, the insider trading thing is an interesting one because it was the bankers that ratted them out, right? It was the bankers who flagged these insider trades, who I'm assuming, David Geffen and Barry Diller have accounts with JP Morgan, right? Like they're clients of JP Morgan. And so it's interesting that, their own bankers ratted them out. Um, I struggle to think, like, why, what is the, why even give the perception that this could be dirty, right? Like, if you're them, why would you risk this at all if you even knew? um I'm struggling to understand the case that people make to say, for sure, this it smells bad, it looks bad, so it must be bad. Like, we don't know what the reality is. Obviously they've denied everything, but like, what is the case against it, right? Like, how do you, and Jimmy, maybe you have some insight, Jeff, maybe you have some insight. How do you make a case against this when the
one thing
timing
I
is
was
so
going to say
suspect?
real quick before Jimmy, I guess, jumps in with the legal side of it. I mean, it would be very interesting to see how out of line these trades are relative to their normal trades. I mean, these guys are billionaires, right? So these are in the money calls. I mean, they're, in the entertainment industry. It's entirely possible that they maybe are doing these $100 million trades frequently, right? Like, did they buy $100 million worth of Apple calls, $100 million worth of Activision calls, $100 million worth of, whatever, pick 5 more companies. And then it's like, okay, this was very much it. Cause to us, it sounds like so ridiculous. Wait, they bought $100 million worth of call options. Like, yeah, that sounds absurd to all of us. But if they did this all the time, like this was the way they traded, it wouldn't be as crazy. It would still get flagged, but it could very much just be a happenstance.
But can I just add one thing to my comment, which is, I get that the argument against this is there's no way they would be this stupid, right? There's no way. They're all too rich. They're all too successful. They're all too smart. There's no way they would even let this happen, even if it was their banker's idea, right? Like, there's no way this would happen under their watch. But then the flip side is like, what is the chance that all 3 of these people separately had the exact same idea on the same exact sort of timeline with the same exact stock?
Well, one is Diller's kid, right? It's his his son-in-law.
Yeah.
And the other, Geffen and Diller are like very
Friends.
close. So it would be like me and you putting a similar trade on, right? Like, we're friends, like we talk about these things. So like, I don't think that is a smoking gun to me, but I'll let Jimmy kind of speak.
Yeah, I mean, again, wanting to tease the Segev episode because we're really going to get into this and a couple of other topics there. So if anyone has an interest in stories like this, beyond what we're capable of talking about here, definitely tune in. We'll be promoting it, marketing it, and letting you know before it comes out. It's interesting because we can only really talk about this to a certain capacity. At least right now with this limited preparation and the limited time we have. And a lot of what we're sharing is kind of public opinion. It's back pocket arguments on, how does this feel and what makes common sense, right? What is rational, what's reasonable, what just makes sense to any layperson. But when you get into legal accusations, arguments, and defenses, it's highly particular, right? There's a certain burden of proof. There are certain allegations and elements to those allegations that you have to prove, and then certain defenses that these individuals can all assert, for one reason or another. So I just wanted to share, like, it's a very highly technical thing where it's not just calling these people witches and seeing if they burn or don't burn, right? It really is a multi-step process where they could beat the charge on any number of openings that their lawyer will assert on their behalf. So, I don't have enough knowledge of this, and was never my practice area back when I practiced. But I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit more about how you can go about alleging something like this, and the process that's going to be involved in clearing their names or otherwise failing.
So
And it'll be a fun thing for Segev to dissect. Yeah, Jeff, what's up?
I'm excited to hear what the guys at Sega have to say, and I didn't know about that partnership. I mean, that's exciting. Should we go around and say jail time, no jail time, and then I want to know what chat thinks. I would love to get a vote from chat.
I think that's an interesting one.
I think no jail time, but I don't know.
Lindsay?
I also think no jail time.
Jimmy?
Not really a lot of info here, but I know the burden is going to be high, so I'm going to say no jail time just based off of the deep pockets that these guys can hire some great lawyers and really put up a strong defense. This isn't any random, like we said, this isn't any random person getting this accusation thrown against them. These guys have resources.
Yeah, I think no jail time too, right? Even though at face value it may seem fishy, I refuse to believe that they would do something that obvious, right? Like there's no. It just seems so unlikely to me. Hardware Barbecue says, sounds like the juice is not worth the squeeze for the bankers. But it's funny because the article talks a little bit about why the bankers reported it. It's because the JP Morgan bankers got caught for something else. And sort of like they're in this, I don't know, it's not the wrong word, but they're like in a probationary period where they're required by law to report any kind of activity that seems suspicious. Had they not been in this sort of under this kind of scrutiny, they may not have reported it, which I thought was interesting. And so it was like bad timing too, if you want to think about it like that they have to disclose everything that even gets flagged. Hardware Barbecue says that is such a good line. Chris says Martha Stewart got clipped for worse. I mean, she got sent to jail for a lot less than 60 million.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally tens of thousands of dollars. Six Cannon says the day Overwatch 2 receives an official announcement or release date is when Activision will have given out something positive. See you guys in 2035. Yeah, that is the unfortunate situation there. Chris says hashtag sarcasm. Yeah, exactly, Chris. Now I get it. Stewart says evening all. Sorry I'm late. Hope all are well. Stewart, welcome. Hardware Barbecue says slap on the hand. Expect the worst. Hope for the best. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do jail time. Tom doesn't think they're going to do jail time. No jail time. I think the consensus is they're not going to do jail time, but it'll be interesting to see. Someone else who avoided jail time. Here's my segue. And was in cahoots with Martha Stewart. We have none other than Snoop Dogg in the news this week, guys. Snoop Dogg, the headline here, Snoop Dogg joins FaZe Clan's talent network and board of directors. So the hip hop artist and Death Row Records owner will represent the gaming giant as FaZe Snoop and participate in content creation, business initiatives, and launch merchandise with the brand. He says, he's quoted in the article that his son Cordell put me up on FaZe Clan. He's really tapped into gaming, Web3 culture, etc., and knew this would be something that I'd be into. I don't think there's any financial, details that have been disclosed, so we don't know what they're paying him. But he's going to be a consultant to FaZe Clan. And, now they've got LeBron James Jr., Lil Yachty, Offset, and 85 members that include content creators, influencers, and gaming personalities. What do we think of Snoop Dogg going to FaZe? Lindsay, I know you have strong feelings on this one.
I mean, this is what FaZe does. They are a culture-oriented brand. I think that bringing someone on who has played a large part in kind of hip-hop and fashion culture is right up their alley. Do I think that this is going to be a smash success and bring in tons of revenue? I'm less sure, but I also don't think that it will lose money. I think that there's a lot of, Snoop Dogg is just, especially with the halftime show, I always laugh at the Corona beer commercial where the whole commercial is just him walking on a beach and handing out beers to people. And it's like the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Jimmy, you feel that way too?
Can I ask a question, Lindsay, more specifically? Mm-hmm. Snoop Dogg, I would argue, maybe less familiar to like the current crop of kids who are maybe in their teens, right? Versus people who are in their 30s today. who maybe grew up in high school and university with Snoop Dogg's music, right?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, so here's the question then, because now I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Does this create more? Do we see what's the larger number? The number of people who are Snoop Dogg fans who become FaZe fans as a consequence, or the number of FaZe fans that become new Snoop Dogg fans?
You always ask this, and I think
love this question, by the way.
Yeah, you ask this every time there's a celebrity partnership. I think this depends on how it's done, but like the Corona beer commercial where all Snoop Dogg had to do was walk on the beach and look cool, and I remembered that commercial forever. I think that probably Snoop Dogg brings more fans into FaZe this time. I'm not completely sold on that because, like I said, it depends on how they go about the partnership and what type of content they create and how they distribute it and all that good stuff. But certainly the number of Snoop Dogg fans to me is way larger than the number of FaZe fans, and I think it's
Really?
I 100%
I think so.
that. Yeah,
Like hard,
sure.
hard, really.
I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm actually I should have looked it up before. I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm
what's the
wondering what the
difference in
Instagram
their?
I mean,
numbers are
Snoop
like.
Dogg has
Yeah.
way more name recognition, but in terms of like hardcore fans, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
I guess
I
there's
mean-
different categories. I'm definitely thinking more name recognition.
Snoop has 71 million on Instagram, which is kind of crazy. I know we're talking about
That is
FaZe
a lot.
collectively
A
as a
lot.
brand, which has a bunch of content creators, and obviously FaZe is probably bigger on YouTube than they are on Insta, but 70 is not small. I love Lindsay's point, right? Because Snoop is like a true OG in music. Anyone that watched the Super Bowl, saw Snoop perform, and he's still pretty relevant. The Corona commercial is a great example. I like how relevant he is in crypto space. Snoop has land in Sandbox. He has a utility NFT on OpenSea that you can use in Sandbox, is my understanding. And I think a lot of the stories that I've heard, at least out of Snoop Dogg's camp recently, have been things that I like raised an eyebrow and said, "Wow, like that's." He acquired Death Row Records, which was the old record label he was on with Tupac and Dr. Dre. So, definitely I think hitting a new stride as far as his brand and his business are concerned. FaZe Clan is very much, like Lindsay said, a culture first brand, and they have no shortage of big flashy names to associate themselves with. What those names actually do for their value, I'm still not so sure. You see a lot of NFTs also that launch with Khaled and all these other quote ambassadors, and it doesn't necessarily affect their value. It creates a lot of hype. But at least with the NFTs that I've seen, it's kind of dumb money, right? And it's FOMO. It's not true investors or people that are part of the culture. And I think the hardest part with gaming, which I see a lot of in crypto, which is why I made the analogy, or at least the comparison, is this is a culture first industry. And so if you're not a gamer here, then you're not going to do well. Snoop streams on Twitch, right? We've seen him. I think there was like a multiple day period where he left his mic off and didn't know, and people were still watching him because it was funny. So I love his brand. I've always liked Snoop. I'm a West Coast kid, and he's a West Coast rapper, and I grew up on that kind of stuff. To Paul's point, I still think Snoop benefits more than FaZe does, just because Snoop is having a resurgence here, and he gets to benefit off of associating himself with the next young cool thing. And even though again he is absolutely massive and doesn't need their help, it's kind of cool to associate yourself, right, and kind of pass the torch, so to speak, or to just say, hey, this thing right here, you guys know me and my brand, and this thing right here is pretty cool. So I like that Snoop did that in esports in particular, though he should have probably done it for XSET. Just an unbiased opinion there.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
Jimmy, you always have the best takes when it comes to kind of culture, the mix between culture and gaming. I mean, that's your sort of sweet spot. But bring it back, I guess, to my sweet spot a little bit. I mean, just that would be, I guess, the business finance maybe side of things. I mean, you have to remember, they didn't just make him bring him on as a content creator. They're bringing him on to their board of directors, alongside their kind of listing as a public company. So I do think maybe they're thinking of this a little bit more from that perspective, where maybe it's a flashy name and it helps attract investors. I would probably disagree a little bit with that, but that might be one of the things they're thinking. And then he is, like you said, an OG in this entertainment industry. So when you're thinking about who to bring on as board members, you want people that can open doors, people that can build relationships, can kind of get you places maybe you couldn't go. And I think Snoop, we would all probably agree, has that network. So I'm not sure the question that we're asking of, hey, does Snoop bring fans to FaZe or not, is maybe the right one. Maybe it's, hey, does Snoop have the industry connections? Can he get them in rooms that maybe they wouldn't be able to get in? I personally think he does. But
is there any
I would
room
just,
FaZe
yeah,
couldn't have got in before this?
I'm just wondering where they couldn't go already based off of their name and size and the others that they're affiliated with is my only question there. I think more than anything, we haven't heard anything about FaZe really since the SPAC announcement, and that hasn't launched. And I think we all criticize whether or not they were even worth $1 billion when they announced that. And I don't know, is this just solid PR in the meantime? There's some great comments in chat. I see Chris. Hey, Chris, I love that comment, and I know we'll get to it. Right? Is Snoop enough to fulfill the FaZe SPAC? Me thinks no. I agree with you there.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. The question is, what did it cost them? Right?
Right.
And maybe this is I think the challenge FaZe has always had is it's this very flashy, high spend kind of business plan, right? You spend zillions of dollars bringing in big content creators, big names, and when you're private, access to capital if your FaZe is not impossible, but it's definitely tougher, right? You're always raising private rounds. When you're public, it's a lot easier. So it may just be part of sort of this, as they have easier access to capital, thinking about the kinds of big names that they can associate with their brand. I just don't know what this adds that they didn't already have before, right? It's not like they didn't have legitimacy in that world. It's not like they didn't have credibility in that world. It's not like they didn't have the right kind of, perception. So I'm not sure what Snoop brings other than more fans. So, that'll be interesting to see how this plays, what he actually does. Maybe it's about merch. I don't know. Maybe it's about doing more with music. Right? There's a lot of directions it could take. But at face value, it's not obvious. Adam says, Snoop fans aren't suddenly going to go out and become gamers. FaZe Clan can type his name in Spotify, though. That's true. I like that way of putting it. It's definitely easier for existing FaZe fans to find Snoop, right? I think the bar there is lower to become a Snoop fan versus Snoop fans becoming gamers. Hardware Barbecue says, FaZe Clan was involved in pump and dump cryptocurrency scam. This gives similar vibes. I hope they don't, but I wouldn't be shocked. They need to stop snooping for trouble. That is good. That deserves one of these. But does anyone think this is maybe not totally legit? I don't get that impression. I don't think Snoop would.
Yeah. I think after the SPAC announcement, right? They're on their best behavior right now.
Yeah.
I think that pump and dump was a super valid concern with a lot of things that they were doing as recent as 6 months ago. But I think they're trying to run a squeaky clean operation here. It's really the only route or pathway left for them, right? How else are they gonna? They're losing $20 million a year. How else are they gonna justify what they're doing if not by going public?
Yeah. Hardware Barbecue says, heck, even Logan Paul is recently caught to do the same thing, and Ice Poseidon, list goes on. Yeah, I think to Jimmy, it's a good point, Hardware Barbecue. I think to Jimmy's point, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny given the public listing, and so my sense is they're probably cleaning up shop, not doing more risky things. I would hope. If they don't realize that more scrutiny is coming, then unfortunately they can't be helped. Adam says, now Snoop fans that are gamers might start liking FaZe Clan, so who really knows which will have better conversion? Yeah, and it might be impossible to know, right? That's hard to track and associate with any one particular thing, right? There's no way of knowing someone who follows their Instagram tomorrow followed just because, Snoop changed his Instagram from Snoop Dogg to FaZe Snoop. Six Cannon says, had a conversation with a friend wondering who the next rapper to join an org would be. My money is on T-Pain or Logic. Surprised that Snoop was one of the first people. Lindsay, Jimmy, you guys have a thought in terms of who Who's the next big talent we see join an org? Next big rapper.
I think it's you can close your eye, you can have a board full of faces on it, close your eyes, throw a pin, and it's equal for anyone that it lands on. I don't have like one that's on my short hit list. I think the ones that you're gonna see are thematically going to be either rappers that they themselves game, that have children that are big gamers, or that have business managers or law firms or friends that are already doing stuff in this space, because it's very much a word of mouth industry and a who do I trust industry. What are they doing? Can I do that with my money too? So I think that's the way to kind of think about it. But if I were to pick a name out of a hat, yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I think the key for me is actually these folks having kids, and the kids being kind of that young early adult stage in their lives, and a lot of them have the star power to go out and get their own sponsorships and deals and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of them are choosing to do it in gaming and bringing their parents on board then.
I'm curious what you guys think too in chat, like who's the next talent to, like, does FaZe sign 3 more big celebrities? Like, is that the play as part of their go public strategy? Like, do we know, like, do we think maybe they have 2 or 3 more in the bag? It's an interesting. Adam says, I guess it kind of depends on who approached whom first. Yeah, I mean, does anyone doubt that it's Snoop Dogg being paid by FaZe Clan here?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's definitely being paid by them. I would assume also that they approached him. I doubt that Snoop went to FaZe and was like, hey, you want to put me on your board of directors? Like, I just don't think that's usually how it goes.
Chris says, always interesting how we start to lose sight of esports for video gaming as a whole. I mean, Chris, I think this has been a conscious decision, at least for our brand, Business of Esports, that the strict definition of esports never made sense to me, at least. If we go outside and play basketball, you and I, we're playing a sport. I've said this many times. I hate that strict definition of esports, even though I acknowledge it exists. The big opportunity is gaming as a whole, not just pros on a stage. Tom says, yep, it is the kids, just like buying franchises for the big titles to keep their kids occupied. It's an interesting thought, right? Like that it really is about that if the kids of these big celebrities didn't exist and were not, in that world, that maybe, we'd never see a Snoop Dogg in gaming or involved in anything FaZe related. I love that that's sort of the push they all need. Robert says, in other FaZe Clan news, did we cover them being featured in a Batman comic yet? #crossover. Robert, we did. I don't know the exact episode number off the top of my head, but I want to say...
Yeah, that was a little bit of a while ago.
Yeah, I want to say
cool
maybe
collab too.
5 or 6 at least live streams ago.
Also in that same line of discussion, I saw Batman this week. So Chad, if you want us to stop talking about all of this and hear me rant about what I thought of it, just go crazy. Paul would love that.
Yeah, I would really love that. No, let's move on, guys. I have one more story, and then we're gonna switch things up a little bit. Actually, I have 2 more stories, and then we'll do our lightning round, I think. This one was a surprise for me. I was really surprised when I saw this headline. And this is where I really want chat's opinion, in addition, obviously, to you guys. But the headline here is G Fuel announces multi-year partnership with Tyler Ninja Blevins. So Ninja signing with G Fuel. They announced a multi-year partnership. Obviously, Ninja, one of the biggest names in gaming, 70 million fans around the world. Time Magazine, 100 most influential people of 2019, right? Maybe the gamer that people know most clearly. I'll read the quote from Cliff Morgan, who, by the way, was the very first guest on the Business of Esports podcast and a good friend of the podcast. He says, it's incredible to work with a gaming icon like Ninja. He's an exemplary representation of what it means to be a gaming personality and an entertainer. I think the creative combination of G Fuel and Ninja will thrill fans worldwide. Now, if anyone remembers, Ninja used to have a drink sponsor. It was Red Bull. Mm-hmm. And he had like his Red Bull like streaming room in his house. And I think at one point they even did Ninja themed Red Bull cans. I mean, there's no one's going to be insulted by me saying Red Bull's a way larger drink company than G Fuel. Now, in the gaming world, G Fuel has done exceptionally well, right? Been massively successful. But is anyone surprised to see Ninja go from a Red Bull to a G Fuel in terms of drink sponsor? And do you guys like this? Do you like what do you read into this, I guess? Jeff, start with you.
Ooh, putting me on the spot. I mean, I guess there's a couple of things. Maybe it's a reflection a little bit on Ninja's popularity, which I think as Fortnite's popularity has waned, I think it's not controversial to say that Ninja's popularity maybe has waned, or other big gaming stars have kind of caught up. He was sort of the first mainstream massive gaming celebrity, at least that I think broke kind of the collective consciousness of the mainstream. Others have now caught up, so maybe there's some element of maybe Red Bull didn't want to pay him what they were paying him. I don't know if I buy that, but that's one argument. The other argument is maybe he was able to extract a better deal at a G Fuel, right? Because he has more leverage over them than he has over Red Bull. So maybe he got a significant amount of equity, or just a better kind of deal. I assume it's probably that versus the former, but I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks.
I love the. Oh, sorry, Paul.
No, it was just let me just respond to that and throw it to you, Jimmy. If it was all about, you think, size of the deal, I mean, you would think a Red Bull, a Mountain Dew, right? Any of the huge, like, more mainstream drink companies who are owned by massive conglomerates could probably have paid more, right? Could probably have outbid a G Fuel.
More cash, yeah, but that's why I like Jeff's point about equity, because we've known from Ninja for a while now with his book and with what he was doing as he, I don't want to say shied away from Fortnite, but like this was right around the time Booga won World, what was like 3 years ago, and we knew that Ninja was a great personality, but probably not like top 100 competitive players, and he was building a brand for himself as like the most, because again, with esports and gaming, it's this collaboration of talent and entertainment as opposed to traditional sports where it's mostly talent. And what I love about this, and what I've known from other startup projects that I've been a part of, that Ninja has had a hand in, is that he wanted equity in those projects. You know, he wanted to solidify his brand, his long-term reputation, his kind of ownership of the gaming industry, so to speak. Absolutely, Red Bull, Mountain Dew, any of them can pay him more cash up front, but then that check stops eventually one day, right? If he partially owns G Fuel and they get bought out or they go public or whatever they do, you know, Ninja, I think that's it's also a proud thing for his portfolio, right? There's no brand in gaming that I could think of, at least from, you know, let's exclude Razer and some of the peripheral manufacturing companies that do tech. But as far as drinks and merch and food, I mean, name one that's bigger than G Fuel. It's hard to think of one off top for me, at least. They're so dominant here that I love that this is a true gaming cultural product that, yeah, he could have gone bigger, better anywhere else, but maybe Jeff's comment on equity just makes so much sense to me.
Everyone wants that 50 cent, vitamin water money, right? That famous story where 50 Cent made like 300 million on vitamin water. I think that's what Ninja wants. He's not going to get paid 300 million by Red Bull.
So
but if
none
he gets
of you
5%
think
of, G
there
Fuel,
was any chance he did this deal without equity?
No, why would he?
Lindsay?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of maybe what the driving forces behind it. And someone in chat mentioned that his wife also stepped down as his manager. I'm wondering too if there's just a refocusing, perhaps like sort of a next phase in life. Because he did the mainstream thing for a long time, right? He went on that one singing show. He did all the celebrity streams. He did all of this stuff. Maybe he just wants to get back to kind of streaming and building his online community and just being a gamer again, and kind of stepping back from all the huge stuff that he's been a part of for the past couple years. This would certainly be in line with that. Again, this is all conjecture just about the direction he's gone in, and with his wife stepping down, it could just be that, yeah, he's looking for those longer term deals. He's getting back into just being a gamer, and he's kind of looking for something different than a lot of the big mainstream brands.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've made this argument on this show to say, the lifespan of these celebrities, any celebrity, Ninja included, is limited, right? You're hot for a period of time and then you're not so hot anymore, right? And someone else is hot. You would think it's all about maximum monetization in the times when you're hot. I agree Ninja's not on the rise in terms of his celebrity, right? Like the peak Fortnite was probably peak Ninja, but he's still, I feel, in that money-making kind of period where his brand is still extremely valuable, his reach is still extremely valuable. It feels weird to not be maximizing. Like, if I'm just taking the other side here, to not be going for every possible dollar while his star is still, at least high in the sky.
Well, I think that's why we all jumped to the equity piece. I think he's trying to, like Jimmy said, get this longevity and kind of like extend his useful life period.
No one thinks it's because maybe the Red Bull deal didn't perform and he didn't have as many options as maybe we think he had.
But then doesn't that go against your he's still a star, he should extract a lot of money argument?
I mean, I don't know, right? Like a lot of this, a lot of his following, I assume, is younger. Maybe they couldn't drink Red Bull, right? Like, who's the primary audience for Red Bull? Maybe it's not the average 14-year-old Fortnite player, right? So it's not necessarily that. Like, could this be better alignment with his audience? Could this be better alignment with his more family-friendly kind of brand? I'm curious to get you guys' comments on that, but let me read some comments here.
It feels like you really want us to have a different answer than our answer.
Arthur Barbecue says, to be fair, G Fuel signs up with a lot of people from big to not so small through niche specific famous people. So hardly surprised. I'm not a fan of these drinks being advertised from a health perspective point of view, but I suppose it's a lot better than NFTs, crypto, or selling a particular blue light face cream.
I missed you, Hardware Barbecue.
Hardware Barbecue woke up and chose violence today.
I don't
says,
get
but that's my view. Joke, hardly worth 2 cents. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than running. I mean, G Fuel's a legitimate product. It's a good product. The management there is good, right? It's a good company. I'm not surprised to see Ninja want to align his brand there. I'm just so curious what the economics of the deal look like, right? I am really, really curious if he actually got equity or not. Tom Leonard says, just as his wife Jessica drops out as manager. Yeah, I don't buy that had much bearing on this, even though I think in the article it did say his new management, which I think is CAA, did bring the deal. So I wonder if it's them also like wanting to show their value as this transition happens. Hardware Barbecue says, I like how Ninja built his brand. Kind of reminds me of how Jonathan Fatality Wendell did during the pre-social media days. Yeah, he seems to be doing it on his own terms, right? And he understands who his audience is, and he's not. And I think if you listen to the Jessica Blevins episode, that's completely backed up there. Like that they did it their own way. They knew sort of what the brand meant to them and what it represented and who they had influence over, right? A lot of times it was younger kids, and were very conscious of the kind of partnerships that they did.
I'd also add that this isn't the first, obviously, energy drink sponsorship Ninja's had. So they are very well aware with other sponsorships as well, how many units they can move, how loyal and engaged their fan base is, right? And what they can push, what's authentic to them, and what their fans receive well and will buy or will do based off of his endorsement. And so when you think of factors like that, it's hard to imagine that Red Bull pulled out and was the one to tell him no. I would more so believe that he had a large share, especially with CAA, that he had a large share of any multiple of these companies that we've talked about tonight with different offers on the table. And this was the one that was the most enticing to him. So like you said, we'll never know without seeing the terms of that deal, but profit share perhaps, equity absolutely, a cash guarantee most certainly as well. I just all we know is I think G Fuel gave him the deal that he wanted. It's very hard for me to think that he had no other options and took this because he was ditched by Red Bull and couldn't get Mountain Dew or the new Coca-Cola energy drink, or I mean the market's so saturated with energy drinks, right? So I guess that's my last takeaway from that.
All right, guys, let's move on. I'm just going to read these last two comments. SEO says Ninja is epic. He is. I mean, and what he's done for the industry is massive. Hardware Barbecue smiles. Christopher says, does Ninja break G Fuel out of Twitch viewership, or was that an opportunity missed? Being he's pass to hardcore or passe to hardcore?
Passe. What does it mean? Break G Fuel out of Twitch viewership?
Meaning like a lot of G Fuel, I would say, buyers or enthusiasts probably come from all the Twitch streamers that they sponsor. And so therefore most of their customer base probably lives on Twitch.
I think it's possible. I mean, like we said, Ninja's the most mainstream, of esports stars. So I think it's possible he brings this to the mainstream.
The question is like, does the mainstream care about drinking G Fuel? I don't know.
No, but they might because of Ninja, right? It's like, did people really need to drink Gatorade? No, but like Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, and all these people started, it became a thing. Like, doesn't really hydrate you any better than water, to be honest.
True. Chris says mainstream versus gamers only. Yeah. I think it does. I agree. I agree with Jeff on that one. I do think it does break. You do get a breakout of the gamer kind of sphere, and especially of the Twitch sphere, because I do think Ninja, better than anyone, transcends that. All right, guys, before I move on, I just want to say a quick word. This live stream, very generously sponsored by YouGov. They provide the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports fans around the world. If you're looking to access that gaming audience, to talk to gamers, to market to gamers, to reach gamers in any way, I highly recommend talking to YouGov first. They provide really actionable data, so things that make you smarter in that approach, more successful in that approach. Go check out, actually, it's a new site we're going to start sending you guys to, yougov.com/BOE. I'll put it in the chat, yougov.com/BOE. It's easier than the old link. Go show them some love. Go check out what's on there. If you need an intro to YouGov, you can also reach out to any of us directly, to myself, to Jimmy, to Jeff, or Lindsay, and we will put you in touch with someone at YouGov, and we really appreciate their support. All right, guys, let's talk about Griffin Gaming Partners in the news. Griffin Gaming Partners, this story, I was floored when I saw this. The headline here, Griffin Gaming Partners raises biggest game VC fund with $750 million, which is a huge fund. So they just revealed that they raised the biggest fund in gaming, $750 million. It's going to be game focused. It's the same partners heading the fund. It focuses on gaming and markets that are adjacent to gaming, such as esports, gaming infrastructure, tools, social gaming platforms, streaming, and the cloud. They now have more than $1 billion under assets to invest in games. This is from VentureBeat, so it was an interview. Asked what the $750 million funding round means, Tuosto said in an interview with GamesBeat, "It means it's a great time to be a founder. When I think about the history of games, it has had a perception from investor mindsets of being a very hits-driven business where it's hard to make money. Most of the folks who invest in this category do it only for a percentage of their time. They're not all in on games. We cover this space closely. It takes expertise, relationships, and dedicated focus." Thoughts on this, guys, on this very, very large now venture fund, brand new pool of capital to go and invest in even more games primarily, and some things adjacent to games.
I have one comment. And I definitely want to pass it to, I mean, this has Jeff written all over it, I think, and I don't want to downplay your voice, Lindsay, at all. I know you're shaking your head, too. I have one comment on this story, which, as someone that's worked for a startup where we had Griffin as one of our that contributed pretty much our entire seed round. I can say that these guys were very generous, not only with their money, but with their time, in having very regular meetings, learning exactly what we were up to every step of the way, how they could help, their other portfolio projects that they could plug us into. So if they have 750 million right now, and seeing what they did with what we had and the time and attention we were given, I just can't imagine how you scale that type of, not to say that they can't do it, but it just kind of blows my mind that what they were able to do before, how successful they clearly were, what I saw at least on the receiving end, and how appreciative I was for that guidance, mentorship, networking, etc. For them to do that at such a larger level, clearly they're not doubling down on this, right? They're going all in. This is an all-in play, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, that's a super insightful comment, and really interesting to kind of hear, because you always hear that from VCs. Hey, we're really hands-on, we're super helpful. Like the fact that they're actually adding value, and you have that insight from your prior work. I mean, that's pretty cool. I didn't have a crazy take. I mean, I think actually the quote from, I think it's Nick Tuosto, was pretty spot on. I mean, it's an amazing time to be a founder in gaming right now. There's so much capital pouring into all of these themes, and I do think there is an advantage to being industry focused, right? Like there's a lot of tourist money, kind of the Tiger Globals and the Tomasics and these amazing funds, but they're not gaming focused. Now, granted, they could hire the best and the brightest, so I'm sure they know what they're doing also. But I think there's something to be living and eating and breathing every day this space that definitely gives you a competitive advantage. The one, I guess, takeaway or hot take I'll say is that I bet it won't be this is the biggest fund in gaming today. I guarantee you in 3 months there will be a bigger one. It just feels like, it's kind of like when the Zynga acquisition happened. It was the biggest acquisition in gaming history, and then 2 weeks later it was eclipsed. There will be bigger funds, and that's not to poo-poo this. It's just there's so much interest in this space right now, and it's awesome for all of us.
But do you think the ecosystem today can support bigger funds? Because the implication of that is you have to believe that there's going to be continued massive consolidation at very frothy kind of valuations, right? That has to be part of the thesis. Because to deploy $1 billion into game companies, right, and game development mostly, you have to believe that the big guys are going to continue to acquire smaller guys at huge valuations.
Well, there's two parts to that question. Do I believe there will be bigger funds? And then do I believe those funds will do well because there's enough, what you said. I definitely believe there will be money chasing the space. I think what you bring up is a valid sort of concern, in the sense that, hey, when there's so much money chasing this industry, like, do we get saturated where not all of these funds can outperform, not all of these funds can have great returns for their LPs, if valuations start getting stretched and there's just not enough either good teams, good founders and whatnot. Obviously, Paul, I think I would love to hear your take on that, but I definitely believe that it certainly will be true that there will be funds raised. The question then becomes, will those funds be successful or not?
I mean, the struggle becomes, I think, a people problem also, right? Like, well, we did a story on the Meta Business podcast about Immutable raising 200 million. And I think in this article, which by the way, you guys should all subscribe to, and also Lindsay's Meta Woman podcast, but we did this story. And I think in that article, it said something like they're struggling to hire and find good people. Like, it's just not that easy to go and spend $200 million that you've raised and hire, 1,000 new people and all be really good employees. With all the money in the system, all competing for game development talent, I would say it's not only a great time to be the founder of a game development studio, but it's a great time to be a game developer, period, right? Like, just working on a game, I feel like the level of competition for talent is going to go sky high. And the individuals, I think, will benefit there. Lindsay, any thoughts on this before we move on here?
No, I think Jeff pretty much covered it. I mean, I'm always excited to see good investment firms go all in. I think if there's one thing that I've been learning about the venture space, it's that, the bigger firms that actually show their support when they go all in on things, it tends to go pretty well and lead to some pretty cool and innovative projects. So I'm excited to see where this one goes.
Yeah, what I don't like is, and again, I'm not going to fault them for this, is because it would be a bad quote, but there's nowhere in this interview that's like, hey, we're going to invest in the most fun games, right? It's all about business models, because that would be a bad quote. So I'm not faulting them for that. That would probably sound stupid in a VentureBeat interview, but, and it's also like not something you can really quantify. But again, I worry a little bit that, does half this fund go to play to earn games, and what are the implications of that from an industry standpoint? That's where I worry a little bit more, but I love seeing this. Griffin's a great group, and it'll be interesting to see how they deploy the $750 million. I think we will see them getting into a lot of competitive deals as a consequence of having so much capital. You know who this puts pressure on?
Yeah.
It puts pressure on the big sovereign wealth funds or family offices that do direct deals, which I think is an interesting dynamic, because everyone sitting on a few $1 billion now, there's so much more urgency to do direct deals when you have now funds that are almost at the same scale. So I think as a consequence, you'll see more direct deals coming from groups that may historically have worked through funds instead. Jeffrey says, hello. Jeffrey, your perfect timing. Today, the first day of our brand new lightning round, Jeff's favorite round. We're formalizing this. It's going to be a new part of the show. And so I introduce to you the Business of Esports weekly news show, lightning round. Okay. All that.
Wow. Fun.
I know, but pretty fancy, eh? This is not a 2-bit operation here. I should have thrown in one of these at the end, All right. Let's lightning round, guys. The way I'm going to do it, I actually have a timer up here, and I am going to keep you to a minute, okay? The way it's going to work, at the end of a minute, you're going to hear this, which means wrap it up, okay? You're going to hear that.
A minute's too long for the lightning. That's how long we normally talk. It's got to be like 20 seconds max.
Oh, okay.
Lightning round. We got to boom, 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 boom. Minute. I can't even talk for a minute.
Okay. 30.
Make me stressed out.
The juice has requested 30 seconds. We'll do 30 seconds. Okay.
10 seconds would be better, but
no, 30 seconds. You got to make a point.
Takes juicings.
30 seconds. All right. And I'm going to call you guys out, okay? First story, let me read the article, and then I'll call you out. You get your 30 seconds, and then you're going to get the buzzer, and then you're done. I will mute you after 30 seconds if we're going to do this for real. All right. First story. ESL Gaming and Qualcomm team up for a $2 million mobile esports league. The Snapdragon Pro Series will have 3 tiers of competition and tournaments in 6 regions. Jimmy, go.
I just wish it was more money, honestly. I'm a Southern California native. Qualcomm is right here in my backyard. You guys know I'm a big believer in mobile esports because it's just such a common place for people it's just easy, it's accessible. So I love that ESL is doing this. Love that Qualcomm's getting involved. I just think it should be 5 million.
Lindsay, you're good with time. I'm not gonna buzz you. Do I buzz you still if you?
It's gotta be.
Yeah, I think we should buzz it at the end no matter what.
Okay, we'll do 20 seconds. How about that?
Okay,
Go,
20
Lindsay.
seconds. Okay, I think this is actually a really good way to start, and I like that it's a small investment. I think that there's still so many unclear business models out there, and especially in the mobile space, I think that there's an opportunity for growth, but we don't know what that looks like yet. So they're getting their feet wet, they're testing it out, and they're starting up with this, and I'm interested to see where it goes and if they'll eventually wind up putting in more money.
Jeff, go ahead. right on the money, actually.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think it's sort of been said. I think mobile esports is huge. Makes sense that kind of the big esports companies are starting to invest in this and institutionalize it. I will use my time to point out Tom's comment. The show's budget has expanded, which I love, but we're still not paying talent, so we got to change that.
Okay, that gets a lot of buzzes. We're just gonna mute Jeff. Yeah, let me just read these. Chris says production value equals real. This is only top of the top production value, Chris. No expense spared here. Tom says, wow, the show budget has exploded. Hardware Barbecue says 2 million mobile game. It's kind of too less, but will they team up with Tencent? I feel that is inevitable considering the share of the mobile gaming market they have, which would kind of suck because Tencent anything is banned in India and mobile gaming market in India is big. Here's my 20-second 2 cents on this. ESL was just bought by the Saudis. And so, first of all, I'm surprised it's not a bigger prize pool. I think it would be great. But I suspect if they're going to bring it anywhere, forget about Tencent, forget about India. I'd love to see this in the Middle East and do something big and splashy around mobile esports there. There you go. All right. Next story, guys. This is Xbox Series X, the most complained about gaming console in the world. I will just show you the rankings. Xbox Series X, this was on Twitter, so scouring tweets. 12.5% of tweets about the console were complaining versus the second place Xbox One, third place Xbox Series X, S, fourth place Sony PlayStation 5, fifth place Nintendo Switch. So top 3 spots, most complained about consoles are all Xboxes. Thoughts on this? Lindsay, go.
This is funny to me considering how ugly the PS5 is, but I suppose creating a giant cube was not going to win you many points in the creativity department either. I am surprised that Xbox takes the top 3, but I am not surprised that given the difficulty in just obtaining these, that once people actually got them, they might have been a little bit unhappy.
Jeff, thoughts?
All press is good press. This is great for Microsoft. You don't complain about something if you haven't bought it. Xbox is winning the console war. All the acquisitions have been great. This is a win for Xbox. It's mind share. Even if you're complaining about it, it's mind share.
Jimmy?
I've had every Xbox except for this one, though I will say that my Xbox mini fridge that looks like this one also crapped the bed. So
No
I haven't complained about it because it looks very cool, unplugged on my floor over there. Maybe I'll use it to hold controllers or books or something. But I'm all in on PC here, so I don't really care either way.
I'll just say, let me read some of these comments. Actually, it says. Chris says, how fast we forgot about the red ring of death. And Tom says, PS4 is only 0.5%. That is amazing. Yeah, Well, I mean, also, I don't know what people have to complain about a console that's that old. But Lindsay had a great point, and it was in the article, that a lot of the complaints were about the looks. And I was surprised that so much of the complaints were about the looks. I think Lindsay nailed it. That was insightful.
I was wondering where she was going with that. I guess she was the only one who read the article.
or just had the best insight. All right, guys. Next story here. Facebook gaming appears to be overrun by spam and pirated content. The subheadline here: the most popular gaming creator content is movie clips masquerading as game streams. So this article talks about how, there's a lot of talk about Facebook gaming beating Twitch and YouTube or gaining ground on those platforms. But the reality of the situation, if you actually go there, is there's pages that are racking up millions of views, hundreds of thousands of interactions, but it's just like it's garbage for the most part. I'm paraphrasing that. It's basically like people copying other streams, playing videos, playing movies, putting up spam content, essentially just to get traffic. What do we think of Facebook gaming's numbers maybe being not so legitimate and struggling to find sort of an identity in the streaming world? Jeff, start with you.
Well, so Facebook gaming is kind of a giant cesspool, and I don't even think it's that interesting. So I'll steer the conversation in a different direction. I think this story is about the lack of strong data sources in the industry, in gaming and in esports. And I think we need more people like you, Gov, who bring trusted data and insights. And, I know that sounds like a sponsored piece of content, but I think it's true. We need real data. We've seen this time and time again in the space.
I think that deserves definitely one of these, and you, Gov, will appreciate that.
I was not paid to say that, unfortunately. Like I said, the talent's not paid on this show.
Jimmy,
Yet.
go ahead.
What happened to muting Jeff? That's what
I know.
I don't think it's a lack of niche or category that's the problem here. I think, what was it, caffeine and popcorn, and there were some other streaming services that wanted to be this culture or this type of live streaming kind of platform. And I don't know if that worked out that well for them. It's just not the most surprising thing that Facebook's juicing the numbers, which is clear, was just how I'm reading this, right? Like, how do we stay relevant? How do we show that we're competing in the streaming wars? Let's just have a bunch of fake streams with a bunch of fake content, and damn, that's my time. That's my time.
Lindsay, go ahead. You guys wanted 20 seconds.
It works. It works.
I think that you could take gaming out of this headline and it would still read exactly like how I feel about Facebook these days. So I'm not surprised at all that this is what's happening. I do still think that there's an opportunity to take some of the market share from Twitch, especially for some of these larger platforms that have overcome the talent or the consumer acquisition barrier. But I also certainly hope that it's real people and not bots.
My quick thoughts on this. Let me read these comments. It says, Michael says, free advertising for you, Gov. At Jeff. There you go. My view on this is
called fake news.
This is fake news. This is, I think every platform, Twitch and YouTube included, have a bunch of spam and pirated content. I feel like this was a little bit of a clickbaity story that doesn't give the whole story. I think the reality is Facebook gaming bigger in Asia than it is in North America, which is why maybe you get some of this kind of these kinds of results or these kinds of data points. All right, let's move on, guys. Let's get to the next story here. Star Wars Eclipse has reportedly been delayed until at least 2027. This is a game by French developer Quantic Dream. They announced it last December. Now they're saying hiring has been an issue. They're struggling to fill developer spots, actually, like I just said. And 2027, 2028 release window is now more likely for the title. Lindsay, go ahead.
At this point, I feel like game developers should stop giving target dates for their title or just make them 10 years into the future. That way, if they're early, everyone is excited. I also want to note that Beyonce dropped Lemonade secretly in December and was nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys 2 weeks later. So maybe gaming can take a hint from that and just never talk about a game and then drop it and have it be a smash hit.
I love that. Yeah. Jeff, go ahead.
I don't know if I could top that with the Beyonce anecdote. 2077 is a long time from now. That's kind of the only thing I can think of. Will we even care about Star Wars? Yes, we probably will, because that franchise has been around forever. But what are we even going to be playing this on? We'll all be in the metaverse at that point. Like, hopefully they've got a metaverse strategy with this game.
This is true. Jimmy, go ahead.
You guys know I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I just want to yell so loud at my computer monitor right now. Why do you even tell us that you're making a game if this is what I have to live through? Like, it's better to just shut up, like Lindsay said, and just put it out. Like, I'm so mad. I'm so mad about this. Hopefully they make it up with some awesome content, more TV shows, other things in the meantime. But this is infuriating, to say the least.
Yeah, I'll just add, I don't know why, like, just don't announce games, right? Like, under promise, over deliver, pretty basic in business. The gaming industry needs to learn this. Don't announce it, even if Jeff Keighley asks you to on some stupid show. All right, let's get, I've got a few more stories here. Let's talk about Bandcamp joining Epic Games to support fair, open platforms for artists and fans. So the headline, or this is Epic acquiring Bandcamp. It's an online music store and community where fans can discover, connect with, and directly support independent musicians that they love. Epic totally makes sense with this acquisition, or they're out to lunch. Jimmy, go ahead.
I mean, it's nice that Epic's going to actually have people that like use their store, right? Other than just like logging in and getting free games and never using it again. I don't know how, I don't know. I love the intersection of music and gaming. I think it's well needed. I love this as another step towards the metaverse and having this central place to discuss and interact all these different concepts. I didn't think Epic would be the one to lead lead the way. So let's hope for more news like this out of other camps, Steam and Activision, etc.
Lindsay, go ahead.
I think Epic is putting its money where its mouth is in terms of this whole crusade to get smaller people, smaller artists, smaller whatever, more share in this giant pool of the games industry. That being said, never heard of Bandcamp before this. I don't know anything about how successful this is going to be. I think it's a massive win for Bandcamp. I don't necessarily think it's going to make that much of a splash, at least yet on Epic.
Jeff.
I mean, I know some of us on this podcast give a hard time to Epic a lot. It seems to me they have a strategy here with music, right? They bought Rock Band. They bought now Bandcamp. They like bands. Clearly, they're doing something in music. We don't.
We're changing our name to Band something.
We don't yet. We don't yet know what the strategy is. But I like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're building some sort of holistic music entertainment strategy. So we'll see what it is. But yeah.
My 2 cents on this. Epic continues to be completely confused, totally out to lunch. I never even knew people even used online music stores. Like I don't even know what that means in a world with Apple Music and Spotify. Why an online music store should exist? This to me is crazy. Total waste of Epic's time and completely distracted. Chris says, "What's Bandcamp adoption versus Tidal and Spotify?" I want to ask chat. Has anyone heard of Bandcamp before this? Because I suspect not. Chris, so I don't know how to answer that question. JC says, "Great show again. You keep me coming back." JC, thank you. We have 2 quick stories left, and we're about to wrap up, guys. All right. Second last story here. Guild Esports makes leadership changes. So they announced change to their leadership structure. 3 of their non-executive directors are stepping down, and their executive finance director has also resigned, it says, for personal reasons. So pretty big shakeup from a governance standpoint. When you have this many directors changing, they obviously reported a pretty significant loss, $11.8 million in 2021. Thoughts on the big sort of director shakeup at Guild Esports? Jeff, let's start with you.
Guild's always been an interesting one. I mean, there's always been a lot of air of sort of controversy around them, right? Even when they first came public, there was the whole David Beckham thing where they had him as sort of their mascot almost, and then it turned out they were paying him even though they said he was an investor and they used that to raise money. Then they had a thing with crypto where they said they had, I think I recall they said they had a sponsor, then they didn't, or it got pulled back. So there's always interesting stuff going on here with Guild Esports. It's a big shakeup. 3 directors leaving is a lot.
Lindsay?
This is hilarious that their finance director is leaving after that 3 million pounds or however many million pounds it was. Just
almost 9 million.
Yeah, I have no clue how much it was. All I know is it never materialized. Can't say this is much of a surprise.
Yeah. Jimmy?
To anyone that listens to the show, literally anytime we've ever talked about Guild Esports, it's been in negative light. So like Lindsay said, it's not really a surprise. We're not in the business of poking fun at people losing their job. That's super unfortunate, and I feel for them. But from a perspective of this company, what they've been doing, what we've been covering, clearly they needed some changes, because not one single story that I can recall that was like, hey, this is really cool coming out of that camp. So it makes sense.
Yeah, three directors resigning. There's no business industry on the planet where you can look at that and go, this is really good news. This is a very negative signal, and I suspect we will hear more bad news from Guild this year. Like I suspect this is going to be another painful year for them, unfortunately. All right, Chris says, if we want to beat up Guild, we can beat up Astralis for their $4 million loss. Yeah, I mean, plenty of people we can beat up. Guild not looking to beat anyone up. I just think 3 directors leaving is at least worth flagging as, this is a bit of a bad news story, regardless of the size of the loss. Like, losses for growth companies, not the end of the world, but when 3 directors resign, probably something worse brewing than just a simple loss, would be my guess. All right, guys, last story. We're going to finish on this. FIFA Ultimate Team benches Russian players and clubs. Another step in video games boycott against Ukraine's invaders. I will say, so there was like a bunch of stories like this. EA has like removed every Russian player, every Russian team, I think, from all of their sports games, not just FIFA. What do we think of this move? And, just in general, I guess. Lindsay, start with you.
Yeah, I think it's really neat to see companies stand up against an oppressive regime and stand up for the people that are being hurt by it. I think it's unfortunate for everyday Russian people who don't support this, but in general, I've been very overwhelmed by the amount of support that different companies have shown for the Ukrainian people, and I think it's wonderful.
Jimmy?
Yeah, one of many stories where you see kind of the private sector pushing back and kind of collectively using their voice. So not much to add more than what Lindsay had shared.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. I don't have a ton more to share than the sentiment Lindsay shared of obviously this is a big, geopolitical issue and, literally people's lives at stake. I do think it's interesting, like, not that some of these companies are pulling out the Russian teams, obviously in this example, but also they're stopping the service in Russia, which I find kind of interesting. It's almost like you're punishing them. It's like, go to your room, like, you guys are bad, no video games, like, because you started this war. I wonder if maybe that works. You get some people in Russia, who like playing video games, who are, stop supporting the war because of this. Who knows? Hopefully that happens. It would be great for the world.
Way over your 20 seconds, but you borrowed time from Jimmy and Lindsay, who did less than 20 seconds. Guys, I will just read this. Beast Mode says, Russia, a fat L. I think, unfortunately, for people not involved or at least who are against the regime in Russia will also be punished. But it's good to see companies like EA standing up and doing the right thing here. So, all right, guys, that was our very first official Business of Esports lightning round. All right. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. Well, it'll get better. We'll tinker with it. Maybe, what I was thinking as we were doing it is we should do 1 minute collectively for the 3 of you, and then you need to fight for time and really get on top of each other.
Just be a bunch of yelling.
Tom says, thanks. Great sound effects. Keep them coming.
We'll
Thanks,
call that
Tom.
Chaos Minute, Paul.
Yeah, that's it.
Chaos minute.
That wraps up this week's weekly news show, guys. Make sure, go watch the Office Hours with the Professor episode. Go subscribe to Meta Business and Meta Woman. Make sure to follow all of the Business of Esports socials, guys, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. What did I forget? On Twitter, on LinkedIn, you name it. Everywhere it's Biz Esports or Business of Esports. Go follow the Juice. He juices every day on Twitter. And I think everyone will really enjoy that. And don't forget, tell your friends, your family, your colleagues about this live stream. We do it every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. The more, the merrier. Thank you to everyone who participated. We really appreciate you guys. It's so much fun for us to do it when you guys are involved. And, it's a pleasure. And we thank all of you for coming and being a part of it. And as always, we will see you guys next week.